It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and here to tell us a little bit about the life of Father Patrick Peyton is Father Willy Raymond. Thanks for being here, Father Raymond.
Kyle, great to be with you. And Father Peyton is, as you know, a Notre Dame alumnus. He went on from there to study for the priesthood, became, just to back up for a moment, he was an Irish immigrant who ended up coming through Scranton, Pennsylvania, then entered the seminary at the University of Notre Dame, graduated, went on to study theology in Washington, and while he was there, he was diagnosed with terminal tuberculosis. They told him he had 2 to 4 months to live. So he was encouraged by a professor at Notre Dame, Father Cornelius Haggerty, to pray to the Mother of God through her intercession that he would be healed if it were God's will. So that's exactly what he did. And he said Father Haggerty told him or said to him the most important words in his life: Mary is alive. And so he got his family, friends, and relatives to pray for his healing. And gradually he got better and better, stronger and stronger. And eventually the doctor said, "We do not understand this, but you're going to live and you can resume your studies." So that, along with his upbringing back home in County Mayo, Ireland, and his formation in Holy Cross, especially at the University of Notre Dame, it is what was behind the passion for the rest of his life. He became a well-known radio and television personality during the days of Fulton Sheen and the golden years of Hollywood. He had a radio program on Family Theater of the Air on the Mutual Broadcast Network that ran for 22 years. And the agreement that he had with Mutual is that he would have to each week have a major Hollywood personality on the show with him. So he spent a lot of his time and efforts in Hollywood working with a lot of the writers, producers, and actors in Hollywood, including Loretta Young and Gregory Peck and Bing Crosby and people like that. But even more important, his love for Our Lady and for the Rosary and family prayer led him all around the world with these huge Rosary rallies, in some cases 2 million people, as in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Rio de Janeiro, 1.5 million, and in Manila in the Philippines. So Father Peyton had a long life in spite of that prognosis when he was a seminarian, that he had 2 to 4 months to live. He ended up celebrating 51 years as a priest before he entered eternity on June 3rd in 1992. So now he's a candidate for sainthood, and he's declared venerable by Pope Francis on December the 18th, 2017. And we're waiting now for the next step for him to be beatified and eventually canonized as a saint.
Yeah. So
that's a long answer to your question.
Yeah. So you mentioned him having a popularity in the United States because of his show and things. What drew such large crowds in places like Brazil and the Philippines whenever he was going there? How did they know him, or what drew people to those events? Sure,
that's a good question. He was not an eloquent speaker like Fulton Sheen or others, but he was very passionate, and he told that simple story about growing up in Ireland and his coming to the United States, being healed from a terminal case of tuberculosis, and simply sharing his faith with conviction. So in addition to that, he surrounded himself with a team of people who would go in typically 6 months to a year beforehand, and they would, as he'd like to say, they would have 6 mountains to climb, and those 6 mountains were to encourage all of the people in the local diocese where the rally was to take place to pray for the success of this event. So he would recruit men and women to go door to door in the locality, and he would have them, no matter who they are, what religion they were, invite them to come to this major event. He would get all the local clergy to preach about the value of family prayer on the Sundays leading up to the event. He would go to nursing homes and hospitals and prisons and ask those people to pray for the success of this event, and then get the parishes to celebrate 40 hours before the Blessed Sacrament, also for this intention. And then finally, the final mountain was to flood the area with billboards and radio messages and television, inviting people to come to this central event. And then the bishop or cardinal would be invited to speak at the event, and then Father Peyton would give the keynote message at the Rosary Rally, and ask all the families present to pledge as much as they could to pray the Rosary daily for family prayer, for family unity and peace in the home.
We're talking about Father Patrick Peyton, and his autobiography is called All for Her. Father Willy Raymond is joining us. He wrote the foreword to this book. And why did Father Peyton want to write his story down in this autobiography?
I think he was encouraged to do so because a lot of people at the time that he was active in the ministry, and even in the later years, considered him someone who one day would be recognized as a saint. And he even addressed that. He said, I don't mind people calling me a saint because that's the goal of my life, to be a saint. And, he didn't say this explicitly, but what else is there besides eventually getting to heaven and spending eternity with God and with Jesus, Mary, and all the saints?
Right.
So he took that very much to heart, and if you've read the autobiography, it's a very moving account of, and very personal, about all the struggles that he went through, and there were many, and also the ways in which, for him, Mary was the central figure of his life. Loretta Young once said, "I never met a man who loved a woman more than Father Peyton loved our Blessed Mother." And so we, as a seminarian, I got to know him a little bit, and I remember one incident where one of the other seminarians was a barber, and he was cutting Father Peyton's hair, and we were talking to Father Peyton while he was getting a haircut. And after he left, this seminarian, Hugh Cleary, he said, "I'm going to collect all these clippings because this man's going to be recognized as saint someday, and these will be relics, first-class relics." But that was typical. A lot of people in Holy Cross, a lot of the followers of Father Peyton, really believed that like Mother Teresa, that he would one day be a saint and recognized so by the Church.
Well, one of the quotes that he's really well known for is, "The family that prays together stays together." What were some of his thoughts on how and why families should pray together?
Sure. He thought that there was no power or force greater than the power of prayer. That when you're praying, you're inviting the living God and Mary and all the saints to come into your home. And they bring along with them this powerful grace that leads to peace and unity and a bond that will never be broken. So his phrase, "the family that prays together stays together," resonated with millions and millions of people around the world, that this is a bond of love and of unity and of peace. That's the gold standard of prayer. After the Eucharist, it's considered by many people the most powerful prayer, and certainly by Father Peyton. And so he, along with another phrase, "a world at prayer is a world at peace," he really believed that more things are accomplished by prayer than this world dreams of. It's another phrase that he loved to quote, and that was by Tennyson. So his own experience of growing up in a family that prayed the Rosary every day led him to see that it was that family prayer that really got him to fall in love with God and with Jesus and Mary and the saints, that got him to fall in love with praying the Rosary. And so, like, every time I saw him, I never once saw him without a rosary wrapped around his fist. And he would often give the rosary away.
Yeah. How did he inspire you personally?
Well, that's a good question. I studied at Notre Dame as a seminarian, and the grotto was right there, and I knew that that was one of his favorite places on earth. And I was ordained in 1971, and we were on retreat together with other Holy Cross priests. And at one point, while we were having lunch at table, he reached over and he was a big man, he had a big mitt, and he put it over mine, and he said, "Young father, I believe that our Blessed Mother is calling you to work in Family Rosary." And I was really astounded by that, and because he was a world famous figure, and I was just this new baby priest, and yet it wasn't until about 35 years later that I ended up actually participating in this ministry, heading Family Theater Productions in Hollywood, which he founded, and now serving as president of Holy Cross Family Ministries, which contains Family Rosary here in the United States and around the world. So, yeah, the contact, it was infrequent, but it was real. And he inspired me by his simple way of life. When he celebrated his Golden Jubilee, it was here at Stonehill College on this campus where he's buried, that we had the celebration. And at the end of the Mass, he said, "I'd like to say a few words." And he went on for about 45 minutes. And people are waiting to go to the dinner and all of that. But in any case, it's the only time that I heard him give his whole story in person. And that to me was a turning point in my life too. And that would have been 1991, because he was ordained in 1941. And just an amazing personal story that was very compelling, very convincing. And the phrase that I remember most is he said, "I'm just Mary's donkey, and I take her wherever she wants me to."
I like it. Well, such an inspirational story. Where can people get a copy of it?
The All for Her. They can. Ave Maria Press has it. They can also go on familyrosary.org. And we have all kinds of information about Father Peyton, about Family Rosary, about Family Theater Productions in Hollywood. We're in 26 different ministry locations in 17 countries around the world. So it's a large family of ministries that continue Father Peyton's work. So I'd say the best place to go is familyrosary.org.
All right. And again, the book is All for Her, the autobiography of Father Patrick Peyton. Thank you so much, Father Raymond, for sharing it with us today and sharing a little of Father Peyton's story. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for your interest in promoting his cause, his great purpose for which he lived, which was the Family Rosary, our Blessed Mother, and promoting unity and peace and love in the family. So God bless you.